Hi, welcome to the Scientist Sage Sangha. I'm Nancy Anderson Dolan with Wise Heart Wellness. And in the Sangha, we talk about an interesting word and how it might impact us and our lives. And tonight's word is satisfaction. And I'll briefly go back to what we were talking about last time. We were talking about self-love. And the quote that came up about satisfaction was, it's hard to be satisfied with life if you're never satisfied with yourself. So if that's the case, go back to the last video. And but the satisfaction idea has really caught my eye for a long time. A lot of people that come into counseling are just really dissatisfied with a lot of things. And sometimes it's all about themselves, or it might be all about other people or their lives in general. But there's that feeling of satisfaction that isn't there. They're reaching for it, but they can't quite capture it. And so there's a lot of things that people go through to try and reach that. And we all can have those moments. Today I was holding a 4-day-old baby, and my whole body was just like, oh, everything is good in the world. But that didn't last after I wasn't holding a 4-day-old baby. And that's the kind of thing that we want to talk about. What about lasting satisfaction? What about like global life satisfaction? Not just the sort of good meal or that sort of thing. And it's not that simple. So that's why lots of times people aren't getting it. If we've got other things going on, if we've got chronic stressful situations, and that could be anything from difficult relationships to jobs we don't like, to illnesses, things like that are ongoing, can really undermine our life satisfaction. But they don't necessarily have to. And it isn't just buck up and like it anyway. It really is. There's an equation that I used in the email that I sent out about this that has satisfaction times support divided by the total of all your stresses, good and bad. And that equals the quality of life. And it's something that I started working with in counseling so that I could just sort of get a picture for people and they could see what was going on. And we would actually explore what is satisfactory in your life. How do you feel about different things? And then looking at all the stresses. And sometimes there might be some theoretically really great things, like a house that was built just to your specification and you're in it and all that. But if people had got into too much stress over that house, then they weren't feeling satisfied overall because they were distressed. And it's a really common problem. We think that we'll be satisfied by doing X, Y, or Z, but it turns out that X, Y, or Z is too stressful for us. And so it diminishes our satisfaction. And even good stress, like, having a new baby, that sort of thing, can really add up and bring down your life satisfaction if you're not balancing things out. And one of the things that increases satisfaction is support. And support in a whole bunch of different ways. Supporting other people can give us a lot of satisfaction. And getting support from people is really satisfying. It's like, oh, somebody cares about me, and yes, life is okay and life is good. And then being supported and sharing your satisfaction with the support people magnifies it another. And so the idea of all of that is really that relationships are really important in all this about satisfaction. And we don't have to have great relationships all over, but we have to have some of those supportive relationships. And so they come in different areas and places and lifetimes. In school, all the kids want to have their little group of people that they hang out with, because that, if I'm sitting there by myself and singing a song, I might like doing that. But if somebody is listening to me sing and saying, oh, I like that, or if we're listening to the radio together and both enjoying a song together, our satisfaction increases. So that idea about supports in all of those different forms really matters to satisfaction. So that having that quotient, a quality of life quotient, has been really useful for people to get the idea about, what if I think I will be satisfied with that, the house that's done perfectly to my request? How am I going to go about it? I might save up for it while I think about the house, and I might, do some of the work myself to keep the costs down. There may be all sorts of different ways of engaging with those things that are satisfying. Okay. And people often get really lost on the way to satisfaction because there's so many things out there that convince us that satisfaction, we can buy it. Or, we can have an experience that will give us all that. And it's not necessarily true. Lots of people have gone off on a holiday thinking it's going to be wonderful, but they spend their time upset about the quality of the hotel, or it rained, or, all of those kinds of things. So it's not those acquisition or, achievement kinds of things that necessarily give us satisfaction all the time. It really can be that, how do I weave this into my life? So things like slowing down a little bit and really enjoying things. I learned to do that in the nick of time before I had my first child, and he cried a lot, really a lot, for like 2 years. And I didn't get a lot of sleep for 2 years, but I had learned a lot about mindfulness just before that. And so I was really mindful about how happy it made me to be starting a family. I was really mindful about just all the things I was learning as I, tried to help him not need to cry so much, and finding ways to support him and soothe him. So the satisfaction didn't disappear because the baby didn't stop crying. But it was those kinds of things, how I thought about it. If I evaluated myself as a mom by how much my baby cried, that would be a problem. And a friend and I were both had babies around the same time, and we were able to talk really openly with each other and not fall into the, I'm a perfect mother trap. We'd say, like, I can't stand that when this happens. And that support, having those moments of dissatisfaction and someone to share them with, was a great way to let them drain off too. So all sorts of things like that, how we think about certain things. If our brain is primed to look for positive things, if we are well enough physically to feel those really good feelings in our body as we turn into good things, we get more satisfied. And it really, one of the things that comes up a lot is that if people don't have enough self-worth to ask and offer support, they don't feel as satisfied with their lives overall. So there is a lot of very specific little things like that we can tweak. And there are people that may never feel satisfied, and you may know somebody like that. And often it's due to things like anxiety, like a biological issue that they have going on in their brain and in their body. And it can be due to trauma or other entrenched kind of learned attitudes. If we have been around somebody who is constantly discontent and never okay with everything the way it is, they don't get to satisfaction because they're on that moment of everything has to be just okay. This just the way I need it, just the way I want it, before I feel satisfied. And then, of course, nothing stays the same. So I'm dissatisfied again in the moment. And it becomes almost like an addictive loop because people get that, oh, that feels better. And then the minute they start to feel less than that, they're going to chase that. And it might be, finding the new shoes, or it might be, actual addictions like drugs and alcohol, things like that, to feel that, oh, everything is okay in the world. And it isn't that we have control over everything or everything is perfect in our lives. It really is an orientation and an actual practice of taking satisfaction and looking for it and sharing it with people. like the gratitude practices that people do. And so there is too. I mean, some people are really just naturally born with it. You know, they might have what I call a pretty brain, balanced brains, and families that have balanced brains because they seem to run together. And they have been taught to be satisfied with life, to really enjoy life. If we don't enjoy life, we can't be satisfied with it. And that kinds of thing can be problematic. And then there are sort of what I call aftermarket problems. If you come out of the womb, well, there's things like the biological basics can help us be more satisfied. And I would call those things like limiting processed and hyperpalatable foods, getting sufficient sleep, enough light, vitamins, water, movement, connection. Those kinds of things can help us feel more satisfied. Because if I feel chronically tired because I don't get good sleep, it's a drain on my satisfaction. So some basics like that we can build on too. But beyond those things, there's a lovely study out of the Harvard Business Review. And he suggests that we should think of satisfaction as an actual skill that we work on and we develop. And he talks about addressing different factors that impact our particular perception of satisfaction. And one of the biggest ones is good mental health. And so it doesn't mean we all have to have fantastic mental health. What it means is, how much do I value my mental health? And how do I care for it? I always tell people, if they took as good a care of their mental health as they do their hairdo or their house cleaning or brushing their teeth, then we would all be in really great mental health. But it's the kind of thing, because it's not visible, we don't always attend to it until it becomes problematic. But even the effort of taking care of your mental health can provide satisfaction. There's a great program put out by two young men that work with depression, and they talk about the sunny days, the cloudy days, and the stormy days. And if people notice that they're having a stormy day, they have things they can do about that. If they feel that depression in the stormy day coming up, they go, oh, okay, I'm going to be a little gentler with myself. The bar might not be as high for my activities. I might drink a little more tea, that kind of thing. And if it's a sunny day, take advantage of it. And in that way, people, even with long-term depression, are finding some real satisfaction. They don't feel so out of control. They don't feel like they're fighting everything all the time. They're in some acceptance, and they're working on their mental health. And the way of doing it is just brilliant, because it isn't saying, okay, I have to have all sunny days to be satisfied with my life. It really is, okay, here's a sunny day. I'm going to enjoy it. And I know that I'm going to have some other days. In our culture, modern culture really sort of points us towards that everything should be really great all the time. And most people don't experience life in that way. We have ups and downs. And so if we anchor our satisfaction to that idea that we're going to be great all the time, we will rarely be satisfied. But if we can open up to all of our life, that we will have things come and go, and I don't know why things happen, but this may take me in a direction that will be interesting in my life, those kinds of things. Because good mental health doesn't just happen to us. If anything, poor mental health happens to us often by things we can't control, external things, but we can make the difference with that, so we get open to satisfaction. One of the quotes in the email was, a satisfied life is better than a successful life, because our success is measured by others, but our satisfaction is measured by our own heart, mind, and soul. And I love that, because the other big piece of satisfaction is, am I following my heart? And so if I am an extrovert and I'm staying home all the time, I won't be satisfied. If I am somebody who prefers to stay home all the time, but I, give in to, peer pressure and I'm out all the time, I won't be happy either. So what is satisfying to somebody else certainly isn't going to measure up to everybody. Everybody is so unique. And one of the things, if we can pay attention to really getting clear about what is satisfying for us. And it can be, I wrote in the email about the Rosebud AI journaling app. And I saw something come up and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll just try it out because I like to try out things like that to know whether to recommend them or not. And it's very interesting because I wrote down things like my dog walk is a great part of my day, and I worry about sleep. And the little journal AI reminds me about what I find satisfying. Oh, that is wonderful because in the rush of life, I can forget what I find satisfying. And I might try and fit a whole bunch of things in because I like checking them off my list, but not in the day with a satisfied feeling. And so this little journaling app was great, but you don't need that. It's interesting to experiment with. But if you just sit down and go through what's going on in my life right now, sift it into different piles, what's satisfying, what's stressful, have I got the support, those three categories, and then look from there, can I put more in? I actually, since the AI pointed out to me that the dog walk was so satisfying, I'm making it, that is a higher priority now, because sometimes it would just be, I'll do it if I have time. But I've made it a higher priority because it's not just for them, clearly. It's good for them, but so those kinds of things, if we really just make that list and look at what is it that is satisfying to us, and if there are things that diminish our satisfaction, maybe we have a particular friend that when we share our happiness with them or our satisfaction with them, they don't manage it well, and that might cause us to lose a little satisfaction. And so we may not share particular things with that person. Maybe we'll share them with other people who can join us in our joy and satisfaction about things. So it really, you pay attention to what is creating satisfaction, what is decreasing satisfaction, and see about that balance. I may want to go on a long trip somewhere and everything, but the stress of all of that, financial stress, the time stress, the organizing, it may not be worth it for me. So driving out to the country once a month may be a better idea for me. So it really encourage you to write those lists and consider those things to find out what is the thing that I enjoy. And the other part of it is, how do I deal with things? It's dealing with things that are difficult. One of the things, if we can be more flexible, I was joking with somebody the other day about being an addict and how me and my addict friends often go, oh my God, when something happens. And then we settle down and then we just sort of go along and deal with it. But if I really get so stressed over so many things so much of the time, I want to look at how I'm dealing with those issues and how can I come to them in a conscious, compassionate manner with a little more acceptance so that I can tone down that chronic stress. So our perceptions, our actual actions, our sharing things with people, all of those kinds of things matter a lot. I talk a lot too about curiosity, because curiosity, whatever we're curious about, if we look into it, we get satisfaction about that. And it could be as simple as today I was looking into how to recycle old screws and electrical cords. And I found some information. I was completely satisfied, and that's over there. So it's not this big thing that we create. It's how we go about our lives. And there's a few questions that were in the email. I'll just go through them real quick. Do you try new experiences? Do you give good effort to things that are important to you? Do you enjoy spending time with people? Connections are so important to satisfaction, but we need to find out how we particular, unique, idiosyncratic ways that we enjoy people and follow those as opposed to what we might see in the media or other people doing. And just the idea of approaching things with the idea of enjoying them, whether it's an interaction with a person or whether it's a chore or a job, what can we do? And so those are some things that we wanted to share. And let's settle back and do a quick little meditation as well. So for the people with me live, we'll start that and have our discussion as soon as we wrap up. And for people watching on the video, thank you so much. If you would like to be on the email for the information that comes out regarding these talks, feel free to send a note to scientistsage@gmail.com. Thanks. Okay, let's take a breath. Feel free to go off screen or put your feet up. Close your eyes or open them. And this is what I call satisfaction practice. So satisfaction practice is remembering really satisfying moments. Like my time today holding that little 4-day-old baby. I smelled the baby, felt the weight, felt the warmth against me. And my body just took it in, and I took in what my body was feeling. And it can be simple as, getting your lawn mowed and just looking at it and feeling satisfied with that. And it can be navigating a tricky situation well. It can be learning a new thing. Or continuing an old routine. I am so in awe of people that can carry on routines for a long time. So just bring to mind what might be satisfying to you. And literally, how did you feel it? Right down to your bones. Mm. Recalling the actual physical experience of satisfaction helps to imprint it in your brain. And doing this over and over teaches your brain the target of satisfaction. So when you're involved in an event, experience, or when you're thinking about something, you can actually cultivate the appreciation of satisfaction about things. I was in a beautiful hot spring in the forests in Oregon with all the ancient trees, and I bring that to mind and my whole body just gets so relaxed. And you might have a moment of satisfaction that you shared with someone else. Maybe you completed a task together. Maybe you resolved an issue. Unfortunately, our brains tend to default to remembering difficult things, our failures, and our disconnection from people. But we can train them in this way to remember the satisfaction of people. And it can be helpful to breathe deeply and actually think about relaxing your body so that moves in there further. And I encourage you, I invite you to practice satisfaction as much as possible. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you again. I am with you. You are with me. Blessed be.